All righty. Good morning. It's 11:11 on the East Coast. I'm George Hudson, joined with Robbie Colbreth. If you're tuning in live with us, go ahead and drop the flex emoji in the comment section. Tell us where you're tuning in from. Thanks for tuning in to the Savage Will podcast at 11:11. Today's topic is great things take time. Starting us off, Robbie, I'm gonna go ahead and hit you with a question. How do you start effectively when building something great?
You got to have a why. I mean, I know that's a really played term right now today, but you do have to have a why. Where is this thing coming from? What is driving you? What's pushing your gears, man? What's making you want to be and become or affect other people, right? And so part of that why process is discovery, and that's in the mission. I know we do vision mission, but sometimes if you find a mission, the vision can become a little bit clearer to you. But if you want to impact every listener to walk away from knowing that they can and will get unplugged, that's our mission. For example, for Savage Will, every listener, the impact we want to have is that after every broadcast, they walk away knowing that they can and will get unplugged, unhinged, unpacked, untethered from anything so that they can be unleashed into their greatness. So first you got to have, what is that mission? What's that big call? What is that vision? Gets past just that mission step, that mission statement. What is the vision? So for us, is the cause unleashed authentic greatness to positively impact the world, one person, one family at a time, right? And so this whole concept is born out of a reason. And that reason was, hey, 11, 11, 11. I started to realize that 11 verse of every 11 verses in every chapter of the Bible is a transitionary verse. It completes a thought on 10, and it completes the thought and it's transitioning to a new thought, verse 12. I said, man, that's amazing. So I started looking to the sciences of things, and then looking at science on the 33rd degree, all galaxies, all intergalactic things are interconnected.
And so 11 being, quick, Robbie, expand on that a little bit. What do you mean by the 33rd degree?
You broke up. Say it again.
I was saying expand on that a little bit. What do you mean by the 33rd degree?
So there are these interconnections, right, in space. They're maps. In every plot graph in space, all galaxies, they're all interconnected on this number 33, right? They connect everything, all the universes, all the galaxies. I'm like, wow, so that's information that's being transmitted on that frequency. And so scientists have been working with that. Now with bending time, we're able to go and see other worlds. We've actually been able to see a world that dwarfs our greatest planet, makes our biggest planet look like a pebble. And it's an Earth type world. So imagine that. That's already discovered. We already seen it. But the biggest part is we got there to see it because we've been able to bend time, because we're getting information off of these portals of information. They're transacting data. I believe that it's when God said, let there be, and he made 10 statements and things created off of those let there be statements. That information is out there. And we're starting to find it as scientists and as human beings. And we're starting to realize that we can interconnect and we can bring about great things. So when we get a hold to that great information, then it's up to us to plot it into our plan development, execute on it, duplicate and replicate. So for us, we're starting at 11:11. The importance behind that is a divine interruption. We want to interrupt whatever's going on at 11:11 because it's transition. Everybody knows that.
Right.
And then we want to do it for 11 minutes because at the 11th minute, we want to have thoughts completed. Whereas today we're going for an hour and 11 minutes because we want to expand on some of the stuff we already been dealing with.
Right. I love that. So basically what you're hitting on is having a vision, and knowing your why is kind of the key to starting effectively. I go ahead and agree with that. Also, I put here is the vehicle you have that's going to take you to where you want to go. It's got to be able to lead you there. You can't expect to be told what to do all the time and expect to be this CEO leader if you're being led.
Exactly right.
Yeah, so it's really good knowing your why, your values, your goals are huge, and daily, monthly, weekly, all of it.
But to get that, to bring it more life, right? What I found is like one of our biggest roadblocks to growth happens to be this Munchable. I want you to get this Munchable right now. This Munchable is going to be a game changer. You have to be able to give yourself permission to succeed. You can have all the best laid plans in the world. You can feel like you can change everything, change the game. It doesn't matter. But until you give yourself permission to succeed, you won't. Most people are living their vision, their mission, their goals on a validation and approval schematic. That means that somebody's got to agree that what you're coming up with is going to work. But what you're doing right now is going to make a difference. And if you don't get their validation, if you don't get their approval, then you've already put up your first roadblock and your first impediment to your greatness. So the first Munchable that you got to grab a hold to, and this right here will ignite everything you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to build, whatever anybody's trying to build is, hey, take this Munchable. Give yourself permission to succeed. Here's another Munchable. The height and the struggle associated with your climb has nothing to do with exhausting you. It's about giving you the correct perspective on the ginormity of what's been entrusted to you to get done in your lifetime. In the vapor that you're living inside of, you've been entrusted with some level of greatness. And that struggle, that climb, that's you peeling back every layer of preparation to get you where you're supposed to be. It's not to exhaust you or bust you up. It's to give you perspective, because at every level that I climb, I'm able to look over and see. I'm able to look out and see. I'm able to look up and see higher than when I was where I started in the valley. Man, that's good stuff, man.
I have to add this one to my vocabulary. That's ginormity. I didn't know that was a word. Even if it's not, I'm gonna say it. It sounds like it. But quickly, kind of reeling back a little bit. You were talking about roadblocks, and how are some ways that we can kind of catch ourselves and become aware of the things that are in our way, kind of that we need to remove or move over, or we need to elevate our game. Where do we need to elevate? If we need to lock in and have more of a tunnel vision, what does that look like?
So I believe that for those that have savage will, right, those that are being unlocked, you have already mastered or are mastering the process of alone time. Not being lonely, but learning how to master alone time. Because when you strategically get alone, you're allowing yourself to go into the laboratory of truth and possibility. And when you get inside of that laboratory called truth and possibility, you start grinding with that crucible, right? And you start putting ideas and concepts and willingness and abilities inside of that crucible. And truth starts to grind stuff up, right? And possibility is born out of that. And the reason why I said it like that is, if you can never get to a place to be alone, it's not likely you're going to get to the place of success, because you're going to be spending too much time always with somebody else, right, doing what they like to do, how they like to do it, or like most of the world just wants entertainment. And so if you spend most of your time in entertainment, you've already put a block there, and you can never get to the real things that are important to help you become successful. So start with alone time.
Yeah, so I really like that. The idea of separating from the pack. In order to achieve results that other people don't have, you have to separate yourself. Not only in your work ethic, not only in your knowledge, not only in your skill and craft, but physically also. That alone time is really important. And it's not, for me, alone time looks like just being in my thoughts, observing them. Why do I do what I do is basically the root of it. And do my actions lead to the desired result?
Congruence.
Yeah. Is it? Yeah,
Thoughts, actions, intentions, speech.
exactly.
Are they congruent? And if they're not congruent, then fix it. Don't judge it, fix it. We spend too much time judging ourselves, right? So you have to fix it. But once it becomes congruent, then every single thing that you do, whatever you say, whatever you do, however you feel, it's all going to be in alignment. And you got to be careful about that too. Because if you allow yourself to move off of the gauge of some other influence other than where you're going, if that influence is negative, it's going to take you negative. If that influence is positive, it's going to make you positive. However, if you own it, see it, believe it, trust it, visualize it, then it'll move you to where you want to go. Let me say this right here. It's unmatchable.
Mhm.
If you're associating yourself with people who've never climbed outside of their own comfort zone, how valuable is their perspective? In other words, if someone isn't in the climb, they've never made a summit, they never got up from a bad day or 2 bad days or 3 bad days. They've never had a routine, a discipline, a workout, of having the stamina to get past setbacks, strength, and ability to pick themselves up after the greatest failures. You have to excuse your company from that crowd. You have to not sit and dine at that table because the company you keep has an impact on you. My parents used to always tell me, birds of a feather flock together. And Jim Rome kind of summed it up this way: you're the average of 5 people you associate with, like we said last week.
Mm-hmm.
When you see yourself slipping and you see yourself delighting in the company and they're in their comfort zone and they're expressing and empowering their comfort zone over your life and what you're trying to accomplish, now you know you're not living in your greatest self.
Yeah, and I feel like what's really important too is when you have those kinds of people around you that don't share that vision, goals, and dream, and then you can't speak freely without judgment, kind of. Um, if they're kind of always that negative ear, oh, why do you want to do that? Like,
Yeah,
you've been kind of aimlessly wandering forever. When are you ever going to get a real job? Or, like those, they may be well intended. Those might be well intended remarks, but ultimately it's through a negative lens. So
sure.
it's not like they're helping you build something. They're helping you, or they're wanting you to kind of tear it down. It's from a negative perspective. And if instead of saying those things, if they were more like, oh, that's so good, what do you want to build it into? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
what do you want this to look like when you make it? How do you envision that happening? And it completely changes the mood and environment.
It can change the game. So sometimes we have to be skilled at discerning that and skilled at pushing them away gently, right? Because you can love somebody but not agree with them. You can love somebody but not entertain or want to entertain their philosophies about a lot of things, right? And
Right.
that's okay. But many people operate out of the skin that they're in. And if we're operating out of the skin that we're in, it's based on the trials and tribulations, the struggles we've had, and what they look like, right? And if we didn't have any training, if we didn't have anybody pushing us out of our comfort zone, then guess what? We became familiar with the skin that we're in. And if we try to put a new idea, a new concept in an old set of skins, then it's going to burst. One of my favorite books, the Bible says, you can't put new wine in old wineskins. Otherwise, it's going to burst. It's going to
Yeah.
explode, right? It's going to wear and tear. It's going to tear that up. So some people have never grown past childhood injury. Some people have never grown past first business injury, second business injury, some injury that's come along in their life. And so they superimpose that onto the lives of everyone else that they encounter. And they control their environments. They control their pain, their emotion, and they impose that on other people. But if you're a climber and your goal is to be that change agent in the world, to be the difference in somebody else's life, to change the world, one person, one family at a time, to be Savage Will, I'm going to find that inner thing that's on the inside of me that moves me past me, that helps me
Mhm.
see something greater that's bigger than me in the world, and to be able to affect that change. then you have to effectively remove those negative voices. You are responsible for that. So in your climb, as a climber, you are also responsible for removing that debris, that residue of negativity. It's not up to those people to change. That's their track. In fact, let me just say this. That's their job for your life. They may only be that way for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because their job is to superimpose that negativity on your life because you're building stamina and strength for success. And if you can never overcome when somebody is superimposing their thoughts and their belief system on these massive plans that you've made, make no small plans for the Lord. You've made these massive plans. And if no one else can get along with those massive plans, that's not a problem for you. That's their job to get you stronger, so it never is a problem for you. So you can continue to move on.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's almost like a gut check too, because when you tell people your visions and hopes and dreams, before they start to play out, it's, their energy is coming onto your like visions, hopes, and dreams. So it's like, before it kind of manifests, you have to be careful about who you share your ideas with, because you're giving them power over you and your mentality and your like mindset by sharing it with them. And if it is your parents, if it is your friends, then they have a special place in your head to where they can kind of affect the way you think. So it's a gut check in a way of before you, when you have your hopes, visions, and dreams kind of in the works and it's not really in concrete yet, you have to be really careful because you yourself might not even be confident about it.
Yeah.
So you have to really hone in on what you want. And no matter what people say, do, or feel, you have to keep working towards it.
That's hot, man.
Yeah.
We back in the day, we used to call people that we shared our dreams with before they were concrete and they didn't get it. We called them dream assassins.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Be careful of the dream assassins because they only operate from their mind frame. Remember, that's their mind frame. And if you lose that data to them before it's time, if you launch that information to them before it's even concrete for you, you will probably assassinate because of their strength in the strength you gave them over your will. You'll probably assassinate the beginning of something absolutely great and marvelous. So one of the things I want to invoke here is get yourself 5 mentors. I used to always teach people, get 5 mentors. Get a mentor that's going to take you to your next level. Get a mentor that's going to take you way past the next level. Get a mentor that's actualizing in several different realms that impact what you're saying or can impact what you want to do. I have 2 billionaire mentors in my life, 2 personal billionaire mentors. And I have multiple multi-millionaire mentors in my life because of where I want to go, what I want to do, what I want to achieve to affect and impact the lives of other people. And so when it's time for me to launch out, it doesn't matter what someone in my family says. It doesn't matter what someone as a friend or otherwise in my life, what they say, because this is something that was grafted on the inside of me. I've been paying that price and climbing that hill. I'm up on the side of the mountain, the crags, where you get scratched and you get bruised, but I'm building the stamina, I'm building the strength so I'm not exhausted in my effort when I really go to the next place.
Yeah, and what I've realized with me is the more I sit back and let the other people speak into my dreams and visions and goals, the more I kind of die on the inside. And I don't feel like I'm living out what I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
So you just have to be wise about who you share those things with and be comfortable. Are they here to support me? Do they have good intentions, but what they're saying kind of speaks otherwise? And that sort of thing. Like do what they have in life, the results they have in life am I chasing those? If not, then maybe I don't share my hopes, visions, and dreams so much with them. You pull your punches a little bit. You don't, by no means do you disrespect and be mean to people, but you just have to be wise about what you share with certain people.
Because you don't always have to share everything, right? Here's a munchable. Title it Climber's Glory.
Climber's Glory.
Climber's Glory. Climbers usually have seats with less people. And during their training days, they consume less fatty stuff. less carbonated stuff, less sweet stuff, fatty stuff like overspending or ego status or trying to get approval, right? Fatty stuff like explaining your purposes and your dreams and your hopes to people who are living in an old wineskin and they can't appreciate it because they don't understand it. They've never been there, so you don't do it,
Mhm.
right? Stuff like carbonated stuff. That's gassy stuff that causes bloating, stuff that makes you think that just because you're in a struggle, something's wrong. That's gassy, man. You're supposed to be in a struggle. How do human beings learn? We learn from what? Struggle. And what does struggle produce? Stamina. And what
Yeah.
does stamina build? Resistance and courage and efficacy and everything you need in order to be great, to bring you into the place if you don't exhaust and if you don't quit, right? And carbonation can cause exhaustion in your body. It can cause inflammation, bloating, all kind of stuff that goes against. And then what about the sweet tooth that you get from the sweet stuff? Where you
Mhm.
want somebody's diabetic approval of you and you become diabetic and their praise and their acceptance of you. That's diabetic stuff on your soul, man. So take this down. This is a munchable, man. I want you to get this munchable right here. Take this down.
I love it.
Diabetic silent killers of your documents. Diabetic silent killers of your documents. The sweet tooth is a diabetic silent killer of your documents. Here's what document stands for. D stands for dreams.
Oh,
A stands for awakenings. C stands for courage. The U is for understanding. The M is for your manifestations. The E is for your enthusiasm and your energy. The N is for the newness and the name change. And the T is for your temperament and your temperature, for
right.
your climb. You have documents for each level up in your journey. You got to check your resume, man. You got to check your documents. What do your documents say about you? And when you go to your dreams, who's killing your dreams? When you wake up and you start actualizing in your dreams, who's trying to kill it? When you start going into a place where it requires courage because it requires stamina to fix and go past the grind or to be in the grind, who's affecting that in a negative way? Understanding. Do you have enough understanding about your course to be able to complete it? Manifestations. Are you manifesting? Have you ever manifested? And guess what? Your trial and errors, some of the things you've done and some of the things you fell forward at, that's supposed to happen until you get to your place. Then the enthusiasm and energy. Do you have the enthusiasm and the energy to pull yourself through? Can I tell you something? With energy, that's even on those rainy, cloudy days where you're crying and your tears help to hydrate you for your next move. There's nothing wrong with that. Then newness. What is the newness? Because out of all of these documents, something changes, something happens, and you become new, and you become congruent with your newness, and in effect, your name changes, right? Something is birthed out of you, and you give yourself a nickname, Savage Will, because you can get out of it, right? And then there's a temperature. You're not easily affected by the things that people that used to control you by when you were caught up in their control system. They could say a word, say a phrase, insult you, do things to you, and it would affect you, and you would go off the handle, or you would go and sulk and become depressed. But man, when your temperature changes, you're like, okay, I must be on point because here it is again. And it only comes up when your documents are
Mhm.
ready for you to level up.
I
That's
love
the
that.
strategy.
Yeah, I love that. So good. I've actually never heard that before.
It's never
Uh,
been said before.
yeah, I was taking that down. But that you kind of hit on my next question. Um, it's like how do like when you're catching yourself slipping in the process of building something great, um, what exactly does that process look like?
When you catch yourself slipping, I believe, here's a munchable. You're looking for men to praise you. And so, because you're looking for men to praise you, you take on a load and it weighs you down.
Okay, so in a bad way, like
And
you're
it's
looking for validation, you mean?
validation,
Yeah.
but the effect on it, because of the question, it weighs you down and it suffocates you and it starts to destroy you. Then you start to believe you need to make a change and leave and all like that. It causes you pain. It causes you pain. But it should be where you examine it, and when you start to feel that you need someone's praise and you need someone's validation, at that place you should begin to realize, wait a minute, I am changing. I have actually broken away from this. This is an old habit. And that old habit no longer controls me. So it's asking and beckoning me to invite it back in. That's where you catch it. So when you start desiring those things that used to be as though they need to be, you've broken away from them. And they're trying to come back and have habitation with you. So that's the awareness. That's the sensitivity that you have to have in this journey. This is why this is not just about regurgitating steps that everybody else has talked about, that everybody else has done. You have to identify with those things that are holding you back, that tether to you. And they're tethered to you and they have habits associated with them. Because otherwise you can't use your documents and get out. The S in documents is for strategy. You'll never get out.
Yeah, I feel like in a way that definitely relates to, that's where the alone time comes in.
There you go.
So it's kind of all tying together. Is you have to have that alone time. You have to have your goals, dreams, hopes, like written down, your prayers, like and have checkpoints. Have I moved forward at all? Have I moved towards what I say I want? Why have I not? What am I doing that's getting in the way of that? And what do I need to stop doing? What do I need to learn? How can I move forward? And to really evaluate yourself, I know no other way that's better than being by yourself.
Yeah.
And really being intentional with that alone time, with your thoughts, with how you feel about certain things, and just reflecting on progress or lack thereof.
So I call it focus on the awakenings from the dream. Everybody say I'm living a dream, right? I dig that. And we dream until it becomes awakened. And then we got to live in that awakened moment, right? And start actualizing, right? That's what it's all about. Wake up from the dream. The dream is what we're building. Some people are professional dreamers. They dream, and they never actualize. They never get things done. I dig the phrase and I understand where the phrase is coming from, but the phrase also has connotations. It has barriers built into it also. So I'm awakening, right? And so there's a lot of discovery in these trillions of cells inside of us, that DNA makeup that has absolute brilliance and is waiting to explode on the inside of us to serve us with actualization, to help us to be able to see. And what see means, S-E-E, it's a munchable. Write it down. Some people that know me, you already know what I'm going to say. But C means simplify life. It means establish efficiencies. It means enhance execution and effectiveness. That's what C means. In other words, make it crystal clear with a laser-like focus. It's that Showtime bounce where you start to make history. I got a story for you. Bear with me for a quick moment. There's a master gardener. He was walking with grace and glory. He walked with them and carried them to some flocks, or there was his flocks rather. And he took them to the edge of what's called high places. And when he took them to the edge of high places, he was in a valley. In the valley, there were only few people lived there. So they called it the Valley of the Few. So in the Valley of the Few, this master gardener would always take his flocks to the edge of these high places. Now, in his flocks, again, grace and glory, they always followed him, but they never got a chance to serve him. So he was looking into the villages one day, and he saw that these mountain ranges on every side, and there's a river that flowed in between. And that river that flowed in between, they never really did much more than harvest what they needed for their food, but they never went up that mountain. They stayed in that valley called the Valley of the Few, right? Because they didn't want to go to the high places to find your height. And that was the name of the mountains, find your height. So the master gardener recognized these several places, and he recognized that he'd been here most all of his life. And what he recognized, that he found humiliation there. He found boredom there. He found misery there. He found crippling fear there. He found spiteful and attacking there. He found cities of discretion and desertion and abandonment. They were all right there. And he was living in the midst of that. He was so caught up in that lifestyle that's all he knew. And so grace and glory could never serve him. But all of a sudden, a master shepherd came along. And the master shepherd found him in the valley of the few. And the master shepherd said, I want you to make a climb with me. And I've got my two compadres here. They're called Joy and Peace. I got another compadre called I Am and I Will. And they walk with me all the time. So the master shepherd convinced the master gardener, come along with me. And the master gardener told Grace and Glory, come on, let's go. And so the master gardener, he took Grace and Glory, but he took the community of the few that had all those other different names and problems, misery and all that. And they followed the master shepherd. The master shepherd took them up the hill, up the mountain. Man, they got cut, they got bruised. They started feeling cold. The grazing was different until they got to the other side. And when they got to the other side, they started going down the hill. They found great grazing, great water, great possibilities, great freedoms, absolute amazement. When they got to that other side, Grace and Glory immediately turned to the master gardener and the community of the few and said to them, this is our path. We must follow this master shepherd. We were meant to be our best self with goodness. And so guess what happened? All of a sudden, Grace and Glory started serving the community of the few, the master shepherd, the one that, the master gardener, the ones that had been bruised to make the journey, the ones that had sustained cuts, making the journey, the ones that had tears, making the journey, the few that experienced what the masses would love to. They went over to the other side and they feasted as they planned with Grace and Glory. They developed and built with goodness and freedom. They danced and prospered with joy and freedom. And guess what? They duplicated with possibilities and all things are possible. They began to live and plant new beginnings. They just didn't breathe anymore. They lived and they awakened to do great things. And they were served by things that were waiting to serve them, but they could not be served until they got over to the other side. That master gardener, it took him years to find that out. And that master gardener led flocks of the few, all of his own thoughts, and the cities that he created, and the mountains and barriers that he created that he couldn't climb over until he met the great master shepherd. And he was able to learn how to get over those places to get to better places, so that the things that can serve your dreams, the things that can serve your best self can actually actualize. This is why great things take time, because you first got to find out where you are. And you got to find out who's next to you and who's in your community of your thoughts. And when you realize that, you got to find your master shepherd. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And when you do that, then you're ready at that point to get up and get out of and go over to your best self side. And there you're going to be served. Grace and glory, goodness, freedom, joy, freedom. All those things are going to start serving you. Man, thank you for the story time, baby. But I
love that. Yeah. I literally have chills right now. Something that came to mind was my mom always used to say, like, nothing worth having was built overnight.
There it is.
You know, the idea that Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yes.
All these sorts of things. Like, if you want results that people don't have, or if you want results that, you know, just exceed expectations, it's going to take a daily, like, you have the results in your life because of your actions. 100%. And that sounds really simple, but you are where you are in life because you've placed yourself there. Yeah. You know, whether it's the programming from your parents or your friends and family, like other family and school and societal standards, those sorts of things. Whether you've consciously realized it or not, those things have brought you to where you are today in combination with your actions and how you've responded to those things.
That's big stuff, man.
And that wasn't what you have today, wasn't built overnight.
No.
Why would something great be built overnight?
It's not going to be. And I got to tell you something. It's not based on age. So I want to give some freedom to some people that are listening that think they're too old to walk into all things possible and the possibilities and goodness and freedom. It's not
even too young, really.
Oh, too young. It's not about age at all. It's about when I awaken from the dream. I've been dreaming about this greatness for all of my life. When I wake up to it and I start writing down my plans, I plan, develop, execute, and I duplicate and replicate, like we talked about in a previous podcast. When I awaken and start doing those things and start mind mapping, when I start doing those things and I start to realize that great things take time, then I'm going to be in the right alignment for that stuff to start happening, and the right shepherd will appear in my life to give me that guidance. And guess what? It doesn't have to always be long drawn out. It could be the one thing. It could be one thing that they give you that triggers everything for you. The one thing with the master shepherd is that you have to get over this mountain. We're skilled in climbing the mountain. We've got stamina. We've been built for this. And because of the way we've got stamina and the way we've been built for this, we can coach you and help you. Think about this. Here's a munchable. My coach, some of the greatest coaches ever been in my life, right? I played all the way up to semi-pro football. Never got in the league. You played football.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we started to learn as we played football and later for me to be able to coach football, we came up with a phrase, act like you've been there. Act like you've been there. So when you start in your story planning, you've been listening to all these other great teachers that have come before us. Act like you've been there. See it, feel it, believe it, own it, smell it, touch it, taste it, enjoy it, make it showtime. So that's a great way to help get you unstuck when you find yourself living in one of them old moments in the past.
Yeah, I love that. Just the constant evaluation of what cycle am I on? Am I moving forward, or am I, going back and forth in this constant?
Am I even accountable to my cycle?
Yeah.
That's what the own it, see it, enjoy it, feel it. That's what we use the word accountability, but until you bring it into your 7 senses, your 5 core senses, and then your imagination and your spirit, the 6 and 7, until they are 100% you are always on the peripheral of what you're supposed to be. And that's a struggle, and it hurts. But when you come into the reality that this is what I was born to do, I was born to affect people. I was crazy enough to believe as a child when the Lord says, I want you to change the world. I was crazy enough to believe it. And I believe it, and that's how I live my life. I believe that every human being that I come in encounter with, every human being, I'm going to affect change in their lives, period. Because I was crazy enough to believe that, and I had to learn how to be a better self. And I'm still in the journey of being my best self. Because once I get to the next level of best self, then there's another level of best self until the vapor exhausts itself and I go back. Can I tell you one more story real quick, please?
Let's do it.
It's called Acres of Diamonds. You probably heard about Acres of Diamonds, right? One man had 3 feet to finish his journey. He didn't take the next 3 feet because he got exhausted, because he gave up. And he kept on listening to all the naysayers and saying, man, you're trying to find, you think you got this, you're going to find gold, you think you're going to find diamonds, and you bought all this land, you wasted your money, you wasted your time. None of this stuff is working, right? So he never awakens to his promise. And he dies with his promise, in a sense. He didn't die literally, but he sold his farm. And so the man that bought his farm, he basically gives it away. The man that bought his farm went 3 feet further than he did. He heard the same jeers. He heard the same negativity. He was thought to be a nutbag because he bought something that wasn't producing for this other guy. So why is he going to produce for you? And there was only 3 feet he needed to go. And this man goes, and in 3 feet, he finds the world's largest diamond. And he becomes an extremely wealthy man. Parenthetically, I'm giving you a story that's true. This actually happened. It's what that book is all built around. And I'm just giving a summation of it, putting parentheses around what really happened. This happened. And that man was made very wealthy. He started one of the biggest diamond companies in the world. He just went 3 feet further. Imagine when you want to give up, if you just go one more day. Imagine when you listen to the complainers and you feel that something wasn't done right to you, and some people are poking at your possibilities and you're exhausted, and things start to die on the inside of you. Imagine if you go 3 more feet, one more day, 1 more minute, what'll happen?
Yeah, I love that because you and I were at the event in Vegas, and it's just like Ed Milet when he spoke. He has the book coming out. It's called The Power of One More.
Got it already.
Psychology and kind of the neurochemistry of doing one more rep, one more, just one more time.
One more day.
Make this happen. One more day. I'm just going to focus on what's right in front of me. I'm going to execute today. I'm going to accomplish, I'm going to time block the day and just execute one more day. And then if you do that long enough, you'll kind of just get used to the workload. And then you'll start to see results. I mean, if you have the right vehicle, like I was saying, like, you can't go 100 miles in 100 miles an hour in a grocery cart. Like if you're going to go 100 miles an hour, you need to be in a vehicle equipped to take you there. So the power of one more is huge. I can't wait till this book finally comes out. I pre-ordered it. So
good. Here's a munchable.
Yeah.
We got to get to a place where we can command our crazy to do business as creativity. Now, this is what's going to build your character, it's going to build your courage, and it's going to give you the ability to persevere. Your promises will be loosed in the right season where your courage, your stamina, your belief, and the stabilized training collide. That stabilized training is your discipline. It's the things that you put into effect each and every day. It's when you put your head down and you're in your grind recipe. Write that down, your grind recipe. When you're in your grind recipe, that's all the ingredients that you need to be successful day in and day out. That's your belief system. That's your visualization. That's the actual work itself, the detail to it, the emotion that needs to be attached to it. And you do it day in and day out over and over again. Look, with the understanding that it is going to reward you in its time and in its season. And it may not be in your time and in your season, but your grind recipe never allows you to give up. Your grind recipe causes you to stay in focus and in that discipline until your season comes. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that now you have to stay with the same job for 30, 40 years. It doesn't mean you have to stay with the same job 20 years. It doesn't mean any of those things, but it means you're staying inside of your grind recipe for what you expect for your life, that greatness that you've been exposed to, that you've been initiated into until you see the results of it. And make sure that you get the mentors around you. Like you said, Ed Mylett, one of the richest men on the planet. Yeah. I ordered his book also. I want to get some insights from him. I think I told you, I used to spend $5,000 to $10,000 a year on books to read, study what these great people did. Not so much to mimic the things that they say or do what they did, because I'm uniquely and marvelously made, but I wanted to know their mindset. And if I can understand their mindset, then it can help me. Instead of asking people who've never made the climb, I can look at people who've made the climb and they're writing a story. And I can pull and extract for me and build my life story off of that, my own unique life story.
I love that. One of the other guys that was at that event in Vegas was Brian Page. And he says, one of his sayings he likes to say is, I always spend 10% of my salary on education.
100%.
Every year. And that 10%, the amount he spent on education every year has grown every year. And 100%. It's really it's no wonder, when your vision, when your why and the vehicle you have is locked in and you're continuing to learn and grow and willing to unlearn also and don't think you have it all figured out.
Yes.
It's, just a great recipe for success. And you almost can't not be successful, if that makes sense.
That's good stuff. Think about doors. Think about doors. How many doors, how many struggles, how many fights, how many failing forwards, how many times have you come to that place where you say, is my dream too big? Is my vision too big? And the answer should always be yes. It's bigger than you. Because in this process of this journey, it's going to take more than you. It's going to take somebody coming into your life at the right place to give you some instructions. I don't know how to find a billionaire, but in my prayers, I pray every morning before I get up. I say, Lord, send me people with means, money, power, and influence to help me in my life. Give me wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and perfect discernment, and a perfect spirit to be in the right place at the right time to do your will and to meet these people so that I can learn from them and glean from them. So I've met these brilliant men and women and all over the world. leaders of other countries. I'm not saying that for no other reason than he answers the prayers, meaning that the things that we just finished talking about, that sometimes it's just for that growth and development to get to that right place so somebody else can pour into our lives to help us get to where we're supposed to be, not to get stuck on words, but to get the meaning of our life and to grow into the next place that we're supposed to grow into positively, powerfully.
Yeah, I love that you say that, like not to brag, like that phrasing. Um, we have to remove the ego side of it, like
Always.
that want to. It's not about me versus you. It's about me versus me. And I love to share the encouragement from my story, the progress I've made, not to brag, not to show off, but to be an inspiration to people
Yes.
that are close to me in the sphere of
Yes.
influence.
Yes.
And that's something it took me so long to learn was like if you have more of an abundance mentality, it's always me versus me. If you
Yeah.
have more of a
Yeah.
famine mentality, it's me versus you
Yeah.
because you're just scrapping at the bottom. Because
Always.
there's always someone better. There's always someone more advanced. There's always someone more skilled, more can speak more clearly, can is funnier, is more humorous, is
Yeah.
better looking, stronger, faster, whatever. And it's not about them. That's the thing.
Yes.
It took me so long to understand that. And then you have the freedom to move forward because when you surround yourself with people that want to help you learn also, that are in front of you, like those mentors you were
Yes.
saying,
Yes.
then it's not like you have this fear of failure. You have this excitement of progression,
Yes.
you know? And because you have those people that are more experienced, more skilled, more crafted, that are encouraging you. They say, I was just like you a year ago, and this is where am today. And when you look to that, instead of this, oh, they're going to judge me, I'm about to fall on my face,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that approach, it's just, you almost can't have progression because you're too scared to mess up.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I think I shared with you last week. I called one of my mentors up when I got into the mortgage banking game years and years ago in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. I was new to certain aspects of mortgage banking. God had blessed me to be able to work well with commercial and construction lending, but residential lending, I wasn't. I was having a time, and I met this one gentleman, and I asked him. I said, "Would you mind?" Because he was very successful. I said, "Would you mind taking me under your wing and teaching me what you do, how you do it?" Just like the guy that showed me the construction and commercial lending process. I said, would you mind taking me under your wing and show me how to do business development and show me what I need to do, how to do it, and then how to present it in the board meetings and everything else. And these gentlemen, they took me under their wing and they started to teach me things. And so what it did, it later opened up a door for the CEO of that same company and for the senior vice president of that same company, who at different times became chairmen of the board for Chamber of Commerce. It opened the door for me to be able to go in and speak to these men that were 2 and 3 times my age. They were movers and shakers, and they were changing the DC metropolitan landscape. And then they invited me as a young boy, 23 years old, 22, 23 years old, fresh out of college, into the meetings at the country clubs to look at how do you lay out a plan? How do you develop a plan strategically? How do you execute on the plan? How do you duplicate it from one community to the next community? And how do you replicate it by taking it to another state? These are where I got these principles from beside the scriptures. And I listened to them intently and I started building off of what they showed me, and it works. They had a plan. In 20 years. We want Prince George's County, Maryland to be an international city. I was part of that. And in 20 years, they were part of an international city. I mean, Prince George's County became an international city. Listen, great things take time. But when you learn the principles, time-tested principles from people who have walked this life, you too can duplicate or replicate with results. It may not be the same thing that they did because you're doing you, but this stuff works. And lives can be changed and lives can be improved as well as yours. I share this with you too. This is the last point I think I want to share. Eliminate those negative voices, the ones you create, right? Because I'm responsible for the community of the few. Those are my thoughts in my brain.
Right.
I'm responsible for that. And I'm also responsible for the company that I keep. So if people are always around me telling me what I can't do, I don't need them around me. It's not personal.
Right.
I'm not living in that space. It's business. They got to be removed because I don't want to keep hearing it. So I can stay in that prosperity mindset, abundance, assurance, uplift, and generosity. Those 4 prongs will carry me as long as I keep removing the community of the few that sometimes try to invade and stop me. That's me stopping me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll remove others who are trying to stop me. That's them trying to stop me. But I tell my sons, hey, make history. Be better than your last best self. Your competition, and this is how I play ball. Your competition is never the guy across from you. It's you versus you, just like you said.
Yeah, that's so good. And then just kind of piggybacking off that a little bit to kind of hone us back into some of the other things we're going to talk about is to our listeners, if you're listening live, we actually just launched on Spotify. We're going to throw that link in the description on our YouTube channel. And we've done 3 episodes. This is our 4th one. And kind of mapping that out would be every Saturday, we're going to do 11 minutes. And then coming on the 4th Saturday of every month, we're going to come on for an hour and 11 minutes. And this is what this episode today is. And we're going to unpack kind of everything that we've gone through over the week. We'll have a new topic. Like today is great things take time. And we're learning, we're growing, we're excited. And we always love comment and feedback. So if you're listening now or listening in the future, definitely give us that. We want this to be as fruitful and as productive as possible. And we're always looking to learn and grow. So
good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So, hey, we're excited. I just want to thank every one of you guys that have chimed in so far. Those of you that have given us comments also about what this podcast has meant to you so far. We want you to do us a favor. Listen, send this thing out. You subscribe, and then ask 3 other people to subscribe, and then ask those 3 people to do the exact same thing, so we can go ahead and build this platform. We believe that it is going to unlock something in each and every one of you. With that being said, Munchable. An alone place will expose you to a prosperity mindset if you let it. You'll get to understand those 4 pillars of success: abundance, assurance, uplift, and generosity. The alone place will take you back to that laboratory of encounter where you can take your thoughts and you grab your thoughts and you bring your thoughts subject and you put them in that crucible and you grind with truth and you eliminate just the pure fantasy and you get to your true goals and you allow it to reveal to you what your true needs, wants, desires, and expectations are and what the cost of this greatness needs to be. When you get to that alone place, it's not a lonely depression and all kind of negativity is. An alone place is a laboratory to develop your best you. In my favorite book, my life mentor, Jesus, the scripture said he often went to an alone place and he prayed. And what he got, what he heard, what he saw, he lived and he taught. Deborah is also mentioned in that same book. She went to a palm tree. She had a palm tree. And when she went to her alone place, she would go to a palm tree and she would just sit there and she would rest and meditate and learn. There's so many others that have an alone place. I think if we glean from their wisdom and glean from their exploits, we'll find that an alone place is something you've got to find. You've got to develop and you've got to be honest with yourself in that spot. Because it's not the responsibility of somebody else to produce your honesty. It's the responsibility of you against the irrefutable evidences of what honesty and truth is all about and what love is all about, to help that thing produce on the inside of you and to have it nurtured by people that are walking that out, right? And you need that laboratory encounter. So my laboratory encounter happens to be my landscaping. I love to landscape, but that's my alone time. Find your alone time. and develop. Go ahead, George.
I love that. One of the things that came to mind because we mentioned earlier is how to catch yourself slipping. Um, when I have periods of time where I'll sit down and I'll feel off, or like this week was a perfect example.
Okay.
I felt off this entire week, and I sat down 2 days ago, and yeah, so Thursday, and was like, man, it's been a week since I've had like quality alone time, since I've read, since I've prayed, since I've really sat down and tried to meditate on goals, hopes, and dreams. And it's in that moment where instead of just beating yourself up, I was telling myself, okay, I got to do it right now. I got to get back on the horse. I got to hop back on. I got to, sometimes I like to do these breathing exercises to really just like calm the mood and then say, okay, what do I want to focus on? What do I want to open myself up to? How do I want to move forward? And then it's in those moments where I find the most clarity, where I write down my goals, where I block my time for my next day. And then I go to bed planning the next day.
Right.
And now it's kind of one of the biggest tangibles that I can do to really have a successful layup for the next day.
Layup, I like that.
What do I want to read? And even if it's just a page, I got to take a step forward. I got to take an action. And that's one of my mentors would always tell me is like, don't be mad that you don't have the results for the work that you're not willing to put in. The work starts with just a little action. And sometimes it's imperfect, and more often than not, it's actually imperfect. You're never really going to have it fixed perfectly. No one really does. So it's in those moments where, we talk about having all this alone time. We talk about making the next right move. We talk about, but with that, it's a cycle of messing up, learning to fail, and being comfortable with the cycle of failure, growth, and continuing upward. It's like the stock market doesn't like go straight up. It's not linear. It's cyclical. Like it'll go down, then up, then down. But historically, the stock market always rises. So it's understanding that cycle of growth is not always linear, and then not beating yourself up and just taking the next right step. And finding that alone time again, reintroducing yourself to your goals and hopes and dreams and who you want to be.
That's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, we got a lot that we gave to you today. We're super, super excited and feel super privileged to being able to come this way to you today. Biggest thing for you as we're getting a summation here is, hey, listen, give yourself permission to succeed. It's okay, and success does come with, as George is sharing right now. It comes with failing forward. You are going to fail forward. You are going to fail, and you're going to learn lessons. But make it a forward step. Don't get stuck right there. Be aware of seeking approval from other people while you're on this journey. The biggest approval is for you, and basically, you're building stamina when you're failing forward. You're building stamina when you're having tremendous success. You're building stamina and strength to continue on that personal journey that's going to continue to unfold in your life. Remember, climber's glory. A climber's glory is an alone place. It's doing something a lot of people haven't done because they don't want to do it, because it's not fashionable to do, or because it might be something else that's enjoyable, that feels good to the flesh to get involved in, more so than locking in on you being your best version of yourself. We got this thing, man. This is what Savage Will is all about. Unlock, unhinge, untether, so that the greatest person that you could possibly be, that person can emerge. That person can do great things. George, take us home, man.
Take us home. Yeah, I mean, there was so much there, like you said, lots of great takeaways or munchables. I love that word. I'm going to start using it. I'm going to challenge myself to use it today. Absolutely. And people are going to be like, munchable, what are you eating? I'm eating thoughts. I'm eating wisdom of Robbie Colbreth. But yeah, so again, it's a process. You got to trust it, and you can't beat yourself up. You just have to take the next right move. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate any of our listeners, our sponsors and sponsors to come. I'm going to throw that out there. And yeah, just go out there, find some alone time. Ask yourself, like, what does Savage World mean to me? How do I achieve that? How do I unlock my true potential? And yeah, move forward. Take the next right step.
Next right step. Hey guys, next week we're excited. Our message for you next week. Get this. The New World Order. It's gonna be crazy, but it ain't gonna be spooky. We want you here, man. Tell your friends, tell your family, subscribe. Get 3 people to subscribe. Ask them to do the same thing. We appreciate you guys, man.
For sure, for sure. Go out there and enjoy the weekend. Y'all stay safe. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, George. You were a rock star, baby.
Appreciate it, Robbie. We'll see you.